Today we're going to be talking about growing strawberries. I'm even being a little bit extra and I am wearing my strawberry t-shirt. But anyways, strawberries make a great addition to any garden, and I am going to be discussing 3 different ways to grow strawberries, including some of their pros and cons. I'll be going over growing strawberries from bare root plants, from starts from a nursery, and from seed. So here we have some bare root strawberry plants, a start from a nursery, and some packets of seeds. And as you can see, they are all very different. So let's get into it and start with the bare roots. Bare root strawberries are just basically dormant plants, or plants that are just about to come out of dormancy because they are in fact perennial plants. The pros of growing strawberries from bare roots is that they are often cheaper. You can usually get 10 plants for under $5, and that's because bare root plants are just easier to maintain and ship for the sellers. I have also found that you can usually find some unique varieties as bare root plants that you can't find reliable seeds for or plants at a nursery. For example, here is a variety I found called Pink Flamingo. To plant them, you should soak them for an hour or 2 in water, and then you just plant them with their crowns at soil level and keep the soil hydrated really well until they leaf out. The cons of bare root strawberries, especially when getting them from a big box store, is that when you do get them, some may be dead on arrival because sometimes their storage conditions aren't great and they dry out too much to remain viable. But you may not even know that until well into the season when you see that they never leafed out. But you might have noticed that out of the package, my bare root strawberry plants were already starting to leaf out. So if they have been sitting on a store shelf for a while, they could leaf out in the packaging, but then they could just as easily dry out and die in the packaging since they aren't being watered. And because bare root plants can look dead, it can be hard to tell if they are actually dead or not. Most brands or companies do have a guarantee if they don't leaf out, but it's still a disappointment when something doesn't grow and then having to wait until the next season to try again. Bare root strawberries will also require more water to get established, and they can take a while to begin growing. Timing is also everything. Spring is really the best time to plant them. It can also be easy to plant them improperly by planting them too deeply, and then they can get crown rot and die. And bare root strawberries tend to have a high mortality rate for that reason. Also, planting them can be a little labor intensive, especially if you are trying to grow large quantities, since you do have to plant them so carefully. Next up, starts from a nursery. The pros are that you can usually find some well-established plants and you can pick through them and select the healthiest looking plants. You will also likely get fruit much sooner, and production might be better with getting a plant that is more mature, and they are easy to transplant and care for at the stage you'd buy them at the nursery. Established plants also produce runners, so that means in the same season that you buy the plants, you can have some baby plants for the next season since they would be very unlikely to produce fruit in the same season. Cons of getting strawberry starts from a nursery are that if you want a lot of plants, it can be costly. You can usually find a decent deal on them and can typically get a 6-pack for under $10, but if you wanted a lot of strawberries, you'll need more than 6 plants, so that can add up. I also can't usually find any super unique varieties of strawberries at nurseries, or sometimes if you get them from a garden center, they just label them generically as strawberries and don't even mention if they are June-bearing or ever-bearing, and this distinction does matter. June-bearing varieties will be ready to harvest all at once, typically around June. So if you needed large batches of strawberries to make jam, for example, June-bearing varieties would be better. And ever-bearing means strawberries will produce throughout the season, but usually in smaller quantities. Another con of getting a strawberry starter plant is that anytime you bring a plant home, there is the risk of possible disease or pest transmissions. And lastly, growing strawberries from seed. The pros of growing strawberries from seed are that a pack of seeds can be just a couple of dollars for a lot of seeds, so you can grow a lot of plants. And then there are some varieties that I've only seen seeds for, but not as bare root or starter plants, such as Yellow Wonder. However, as satisfying as it is growing strawberries from seed, there are some cons, and one is that they can take a while. Germination can take a few days to a week, and then they do tend to grow quite slowly, so you'd really want to start them well before the spring so they have enough time to get established. And since the seeds are really tiny and do take a while to get going, I have only really had luck starting them hydroponically to transplant later. And while there are some varieties that I can only find from seed, they are usually only alpine type strawberries, and these tend to be really small and very delicate. You can easily squish them just by harvesting them, and they also don't really have a long shelf life once picked. Comparing all three methods, I think it's safe to say that I think the best way to grow strawberries is from starter plants. Overall, it'll take less time, and even though the cost can add up, I think it's worth it when you don't have to wait as long for them to grow. And out of the three ways I discussed, they have the highest success rate. And even though there are some cons, none of them are a deal breaker, because even though getting enough plants can be costly at first, they are a worthy investment since they will come back year after year with proper care, as well as produce runners, so your initial plants will multiply. And while it's nice to find unique varieties, classic strawberries are still delicious, and a homegrown strawberry, like most things, just tastes better. And as far as bringing home pests on a plant, while it's unfortunate and while you do want to inspect your plants for pests before putting them in your garden, pests are just a part of gardening, and even if it takes you a bit of time to inspect for pests or to quarantine them for an extra safety measure, it wouldn't deter me from buying strawberry starter plants. However, there is nothing wrong with trying different methods to see what works best for you. These are just my experiences, and you may have different results with different methods. But either way, you can't go wrong with adding strawberries to your garden. So get them in any way that you can.